In 2019, we did a study involving 2,000 NCEA students, and 73.9% of them said that managing multiple assessments in NCEA was the hardest bit.
So what can we do about this? Dealing with multiple assessments is never easy.
No.
However, we've got a few strategies that might be able to help you in this difficult process.
I'm Catherine.
I'm Josh.
And we're going to be teaching you how to deal with multiple assignments in NCEA.
Let's get into it.
Josh, how many times have you had a week where you have 3 internal assessments, your school production, a sports match, and your best friend's birthday, and you just don't sleep?
I mean, that just sounds like all of my year 13.
Yeah, fair enough, same here. There are going to be weeks where it is impossible to put 100% into every internal assessment because you just have too much stuff going on in your life.
So then how do we go about fixing this?
Well, the best thing to do is to prepare in advance. When you first start a topic, make sure to ask your teacher when it's being assessed, maybe for an exact date or what week it's being assessed in, and you can put it all in a big calendar or a big list of all of the weeks in a term. And then from there, you can look and figure out which weeks are going to be your crunch times. For me, it was always week 7.
Yes, week 4
Yeah.
for me actually.
Wow, week 4. Interesting. See, it's going to be different for everyone, but if you can plan in advance, you can then make sure to ask your teachers for extensions or even make sure to get some assessments done early.
For strategy number 2, let go of perfection. If you've got multiple assessments in one time frame, you're going to have to come to the acceptance that you're probably not going to be able to get every assessment perfectly completed to the highest standard, or maybe to the standard that in an ideal world you'd like. Whether or not it's your fault you're in this situation, you have to be strategic with your time and really focus on those high impact areas. So spending your time, say, on an assignment where you could get it up from an M to an E, rather spending your time on an assignment where you can get it from an E7 to an E8.
It's much more worth getting more excellences than better quality excellences, but less of them.
So it's really important to be able to strategize with your time in those crunch time areas and making sure that you can have the best overall outcome for your work instead of just getting those few internals to perfection.
Our third strategy is to divide and conquer. Once you've got over your perfectionism and once you have a giant big list of everything you need to do, what you then need to do is prioritize. Actually figure out which assessments you need to put the most work into, and you need to delegate your time effectively. It can be really easy to just stick with the really nice, fun, easy internals that you should only really spend 30 minutes on them, but you spend 2 hours on them because you're productive and so good at studying. When you get a list of things and you put the top priority at the top, what you can then do is break down all of the steps you need to finish this internal. For an essay-based subject, it could be I need to write the introduction, first paragraph, second paragraph, third paragraph, and conclusion, and then you get that reward of ticking off each of those boxes as you go.
And our fourth strategy for you today is a thing called Parkinsons law.
What is Parkinson's law though, Josh?
Now, Parkinson's law is the idea that our productivity expands to the time we allot. So we all have those times when, say, we sit down to do a task that realistically should take like 15 minutes, and then we end up spending hours on it. Like for example, I always used to take my sweet time to make title pages for all of my internals.
Yeah, I would just miraculously forget my student ID and have to go find my student ID card, and I would just miraculously forget the number and have to go find it. It would take me hours.
Exactly, and when we've got multiple assessments due at one time, we need to be really strategic on how we use that time. So setting ourselves reasonable time limits where we can focus in on getting the task done in a reasonable amount of time is a good way to economize that time. And one helpful way we can do this is using a thing called a Pomodoro timer. And you can find these on the internet and on YouTube. And basically what they do is they give you 25 minutes to work on an assignment or a specific task, and then you'll hear a ding, and then you'll get a 5-minute break. So hopefully in that time you can get one of those tasks done.
You can make the Pomodoro timer the most effective by making sure you actually step away from where you're physically studying during your 5-minute break. This helps your mind just sort of take a break, stop thinking about your studies, and actually You can, go to the kitchen, make yourself a cup of tea and get your mind off of what you're studying, even if it's for 5 minutes. Have a proper break.
Exactly, and it's also helpful to stay away from screens. I know it's a big temptation to have a break and go on the social medias or the TikToks. Exactly, but staying away from the screen, because we are spending so much time on the screen when studying, is really helpful.
Strategy number 5 is to build up quick wins. When we have a lot of pressure on ourselves and when we're undergoing a lot of stress, our self-efficacy plummets. Self-efficacy is the self-belief that we can complete a task, and scientists say it is one of the main contributing factors to our motivation.
So how can we overcome this?
Well, if we break down an internal into multiple different tasks, we can give ourselves little wins. You can't complete an essay in one day, but you can do the introduction and the first paragraph. So by splitting up your internal into multiple different steps and multiple different goals, you can actually feel fulfilled and rewarded when even though you haven't finished an internal in one day, you've certainly done halfway through. I always love Notion to help me organise this. I first off use Notion as like a big calendar for all of my internals, but then you can use the to-do list feature to break up all of your internals and get that really nice satisfying tick once you've done it. When we build up those small wins, our self-efficacy increases, which then in turn increases our motivation to do more work. This leads to a just upward spiral of success. Another top tip from sports people across the world is to close your eyes and visualize a time where you have overcome something that seemed impossible. Everyone's had that in their lives where they've actually done something they thought they couldn't. And so when you bring yourself back to a time when you've done that, you remember that it actually is possible to get through copious amounts of stress and pressure that the school system gives you.
Our 6th and final strategy is reframing our stress, because stress can actually be a beneficial thing. We're often taught that stress is a bad thing and that we should avoid it at all costs. But without stress, we wouldn't be able to motivate ourselves and get up to the challenge.
What happens if you're under stressed?
Well, for example, scientists of studying basketball players found that players who didn't have any stress performed worse than players who had a healthy amount of stress.
If you're under stressed, you could feel bored or unmotivated and you don't have enough energy to get up and do what you're going to do.
Exactly. And what about when you're overstressed?
When you're overstressed, you can feel overwhelmed and anxious, and it can lead to even burnout if you're too stressed for too long. This is when we just need to relax and reprioritize what we're feeling.
Optimal stress looks like moments when you're feeling creative, in the zone, and really motivated to get the task done at hand. So being able to reframe our stress is really important. Instead of saying, I'm so stressed, I can't do this task, instead try and reframe it and say, I have a lot on my plate, I'm trying my best, and I'm gonna focus in on the stress and take that as my body trying to help me tackle the challenge at hand.
That being said, if you're extremely overstressed for a long period of time and you're feeling really anxious about it, please make sure to talk to someone. Being too stressed for too long is going to negatively affect anyone, so make sure to have a good support system if you ever feel like that. There are always going to be times in life when you're stressed or overwhelmed because of the amount of tasks you have to do within a certain time frame. This is just a part of life, but we hope that these strategies have helped you understand how you can overcome this and use it to your advantage.
Remember to look after yourself and try the best that you can given the circumstances.
I've been Catherine.
I've been Josh.
Bye.
Bye now.